Friday we left off in lesson 11.2, ready to talk about sampling methods, right? So we had talked a little bit about types of surveys, if you recall. We talked about, what was it, the sample survey, experiment, observational studies. We talked about those. And we also talked about bias a little bit, what it means to have bias or be biased. Today we're going to spend most of our time talking about some sampling methods. You'll notice I kind of have this into three basic groups here. The first one is kind of a standalone, but that is simple random sample. And that is just the idea that however you pick this random sample, each member of the population is equally likely to be chosen, and each possible sample of the size you want is equally likely to be chosen. So just basic random sample, nothing, fancy. The rest of these are broken into two categories. You'll notice there is a category where there are samples where care must be taken to avoid bias, so there might be some bias. And then there are samples where there's a high risk of bias. Okay, so it doesn't mean that the bias is there to exist, but it means could be a strong chance of it. So let's go through the definitions of each of these. Stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is when a population is divided into groups with similar characteristics and a sample is randomly chosen from each group. So notice here, stratified sampling. I think that right there, divide into groups with similar characteristics. That is your stratified sampling. Then we have cluster sampling. Cluster sampling, when a population is divided into convenient clusters, and entire clusters are chosen at random as the sample. Okay, so that one has to do more with convenience. And then the last one in this group, systematic sampling, where you start with one member chosen at random and then use a rule such as every third member of the population to select members of the sample. I think earlier in the notes we had an example on Friday, or maybe, I don't know, Thursday, Friday, where it was every 10th person walking into the school, what kind of car do they drive, right? Something like that. That's that idea. Okay? With all of these, depending on how they're done, there might not be bias. But also, depending on how they're done, there definitely could be bias, so you have to watch. And then the other two categories fall under the samples with high risk of bias. One of them, convenience sampling, only choosing subjects that are in close proximity or easy to get to. So no matter what the survey is about, saying, okay, well, this survey is going to represent Tri-Central High School, but I'm just surveying this class. Because it's convenient. It's easy, right? I don't have to do any extra work to survey you guys. You're right here. So convenience sampling. Self-selected sampling, using a sample made up of volunteers. In other words, choosing to answer some type of survey. Where, okay, there's a survey, I choose to answer it. That's self-selected because I'm choosing to answer it as opposed to choosing to ignore it. Okay? So those are our different types of samples. Keep those all in mind. You have them there at the top of the paper. Because we're going to go down and look at the bottom. And we're going to answer two questions. What sampling method is used in the following examples? And is the method likely to be biased? Okay, so two questions. Example A, starting with a randomly chosen ID number, every fifth student ID number was chosen, and that student was asked to fill out a survey. What sampling method do you think is used here? What was it? Systematic? Does that make sense? Because it was every fifth, right? So that is going to make it an example of systematic sampling. Is this method likely to be biased? No? Seems pretty random, doesn't it? Is my voice picking up on your phone?
Yes, so.
Nice. Very sensitive then. Okay. Not biased, is that what was said? Because it seems pretty random, doesn't it? Every fifth student, and this is every fifth student ID number was chosen. It's not like I'm picking from a group. This is just in general, every fifth student ID number. So I would agree and say, I just used the word unbiased. If you'd prefer to say not biased, go for it. However you want to write yours on your paper. Example B. A retailer put feedback cards at the front of its store. They got responses from 22% of their customers. What do you think, Autumn?
Self-selected.
She says self-selected. Because?
Because they didn't ask anybody to fill them out. They just put them.
Yeah. It's just people chose, do I want to take the time to fill out this survey, right? So, self-selected sample. Biased or not biased?
Biased.
Why?
You're gonna choose, like, if you're really angry with how the store is going, you're gonna fill it out, or you really, really enjoyed it. So you don't really do it for mediocre about the store.
We're probably going to get the two extremes, yes? Okay. Probably going to get the people that are really unhappy about something. They're going to be mad, they're going to be frustrated, they're going to be like, oh, I'm filling that out. Might get the people that had a really good experience, yes. Are we going to get the people in the middle? Probably not. Someone in my morning class said we're going to get the Karens. Kind of laughed. I said, okay. Valid answer. Okay. So, this one would be because it's self-selected. That does mean that this is highly likely to be biased, okay? So you can write biased. I've written in my notes highly likely to be biased. The idea is we're probably going to see bias there. Okay? Okay. C. A city wants to know what % of people in the city own a dog or a cat. A city worker goes door to door in the neighborhood around City Hall to ask people about their pets. What type of sample do we think this is?
Convenience.
Convenience? Because?
They took people from close proximity.
Yeah. It was specifically, what was it? One neighborhood right around City Hall, yes? So picking that one neighborhood right around City Hall, not going to a variety of neighborhoods throughout the city or whatever, is going to make it a convenience sample. Okay. What about bias? What'd you say? I was just watching the look on her face. She said likely and then had the look like maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I
But-
mean, you're only asking in one little area, so.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I'd say no, because you're not like specifically choosing the person, it's just the area that they live
Okay.
But like one area could be known for something like, say they really like Pepsi, and then you use that information to like say, oh yeah, this city likes Pepsi.
And I had mixed emotions on this one, I'll be honest, which is why I was kind of, curious to hear thoughts. I can kind of see both ways, I'll be honest. Okay. I can kind of see the idea that, yes, it's one neighborhood, but it's still randomly door to door in that neighborhood, right? So I would like to think you should get a random selection, right? But on the flip side, it is just one neighborhood. So does that make it a little biased, possibly? Yeah. And so as I said, this is one I could see both ways. It's not a clear-cut and defined one. Okay, I feel like the others were a little more clear. And I will say that I will try to be careful when it comes test time or quiz time to be, make it a little, obvious, not quite so debatable there. I say I have written in the notes likely unbiased, but again, you have to, what if that neighborhood has a strong like or dislike of pets? Is that really representative of the whole city? Right.
Location. Like if you're buying dog parkers,
Yeah. So, kind of want to write could go either way, but I probably shouldn't do that as a teacher. So,
how likely
I guess here's what I'm going to say. Could be I guess I'm going to flip it and say could be biased depending on the neighborhood. How's that does that make sense? Say could be biased depending on the neighborhood. Okay. D. The population is grouped according to age, and a random sample is chosen from each group. What was it? Stratified because?
you're grouping them by age.
Okay.
Taking a sample.
Remember, stratified is dividing into groups with similar characteristics. What's our similar characteristic here? This is grouped according to age. So that does make it a stratified sample. Okay, so the population is grouped according to age, and a random sample is chosen from each group. Biased or not? What? She said something and now she's not sure of herself.
I mean, it's still random. I feel like it could be unbiased because you're taking like a sample from each group and it's not just one specific age. It's like you're gonna get all sorts of opinions. Because like somebody that's older is gonna have a different opinion on like cell phones rather than somebody that's younger.
Okay. So I think what saves this one, so to speak, is the fact that, yes, it's grouped according to age, which could very well be biased, right? But then what happens here? A sample is chosen from each group. So are you getting all the different age groups then? You're getting representation of all the different age groups. So to me, I would say this one is most likely unbiased. Okay? On all of these, could one little change the opinion on these? Yes. Very rarely, and I tend to go, most likely unbiased. It is most likely unbiased, but there is always that slight chance something could bias it. And E. A number of hospitals around the country were randomly chosen. Within each hospital, all of the nurses were chosen.
Cluster sampling.
Okay, why cluster sampling?
Because you put all the nurses together.
Okay. And convenience, right? It's convenient to just say, okay, I'm just going to use all the nurses as my sample, right? Okay. So convenience clustering. No. Why did I throw convenience in there? Because I said the word convenience, right? Okay. Try that again, sorry. Clustering clustering sample. That's better. Gosh. Cluster sampling is what it's supposed to be. I am struggling. Okay, you get the idea. Biased or not? You said what?
Likely,
And why would you say likely to be biased?
because nurses are going to have a different opinion than doctors.
Okay. If we're trying to get a hospital opinion, you need a variety of employees within the hospital, yes? Okay. Just picking just nurses, you're not getting the doctor's opinions. You're not getting the other staff, right? There's a lot of support staff also besides just doctors and nurses, aren't there? So, I agree, ouch, that it is likely biased. And I'm going to say since only nurses. Okay. So, get what you need on that page. And then let's look at the back. And actually, you can start thinking about that first one on the back. We're going to kind of talk through some experiments on the back side here. And the first one asks us to describe a design for a controlled experiment to test a new drug for treating the flu on mice. How does randomization apply to your design? Okay. So describe a design for a controlled experiment to test a new drug for treating the flu on mice. Thoughts here?
You have to mice the drug and mice not.
Okay. I mean, if we're talking about a controlled experiment here, yes. You're going to have at least two groups, right? One group's going to get the new drug. One group's going to not get the new drug. What's the name of those groups?
Placebo.
I'm not going to use the word placebo, but
Control and experimental.
okay, control and experimental. Control group kind of being the placebo group, right? And then, what has to be true of all the mice, though? They all have to have the flu, yes? If this experiment's going to work, they all have to have the flu. So, at some point, they're all going to have to be infected with the flu. Okay. So, how does randomization apply to your design? I think that would just be, when you pick your two groups, how do you need to pick them? Randomly, right? I mean, you're taking the mice and one mice here, one mice here, one mice? Okay. One mouse here, one mouse here, one mouse here, randomly assigning them. So, I just have some basic kind of highlights written down. Randomly assign mice to two groups. Okay. You've got two groups of mice then. All the mice need to be infected with the flu, right? So infect all the mice with the flu. And then one group receives treatment, the other does not, right? One group receives treatment, other does not. The group that receives the treatment, I would call my experimental group. The group that does not, I would call my control group. placebo group if you prefer. Although I have a question, so placebo, that makes me think, if it's a placebo group, is that a definite, they get something, it's just kind of like, I don't know. When I think placebo, I think of, they appear to get some kind of treatment, but, you know, like if it's a pill, they just get like a water pill instead of,
Yeah.
I think of that with placebo, but, which you could use here, but, anyways. Okay, we got the basic idea, right? Okay, one more. Design an experiment to test whether drinking coffee improves memory. How will you choose the experimental group and control groups? In other words, what will be true of the experiment, you know, which will be your experimental group and which will be your control group, I guess I'm asking. So what are we going to do here? Keep it basic, nothing fancy.
You have one group that drinks coffee and one group that doesn't.
Okay? Two groups. One group's going to drink coffee, one group's not going to drink coffee. Which group's which? Which one's control, which one's experiment? Okay. Control group would be the one that doesn't drink coffee. Experimental group would be the one that does drink coffee. What do we have to do in the end? Give them some kind of memory test, yes? We're not going to get as specific as what that memory test looked like, but give them some kind of memory test. Okay.
But wouldn't you do it at the beginning and the end?
Probably should, yeah. I didn't think to mention that, but. So, and actually we can put that in there, so. Okay. Two groups, right? The control group is no coffee. Experimental group drinks coffee. I think that would be valid to say. Give memory test at beginning and end and compare results, right? I just have in my notes, give memory test and compare results. But give memory test and compare results. As long as you don't give your memory test at the beginning and then break into groups based on the memory test. You want to have them broken and then, so. Okay. Your homework to finish is 11.2. Actually, I don't think I had it available before today, so unless you caught it this morning, your homework that now you're supposed to have the next 10 minutes to work on is in Salvis. So unless the internet magically came back up, we're out of luck on that one though, which is annoying.